This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and joining me today is Andrew, going to give us this week's topics.
Well, Lions were on their bye week this week, and they still found a way to lose. We'll explain. It's their Fan Report.
All right.
I like that one.
You know, I will say, it's kind of nice not to have a Sunday where the Lions ruin it in some way, shape, or form. I mean, they still kind of did, but not to the level that I'm like still annoyed the next day.
They did find a way to make me mad. They did. It was funny. Me and my dad were watching the Kansas City Las Vegas game, and about halfway through the second quarter, my dad starts ranting about the Lions, and then he stops.
I would like to listen to your dad rant about the Lions. I would just
comes
be
around.
So curious to hear what he has to say.
My dad starts ranting about the defense, about the Lions defense again, how we need to fire everyone, and I'm like, Dad,
wait,
we're not playing. Give it a rest.
Hold up. Watching the Las Vegas Raiders Kansas City Chiefs game that went into like 40-point apiece range made him rant about how bad the Lions defense is. I don't know if
it triggered his PTSD or what. I don't know what.
Maybe that makes some sense. It's not like watching this. I was gonna say it's not like he's watching the steel curtain, wondering what could be.
Yeah,
he was watching two bad defenses take turns getting punched in the mouth.
That was a weird game.
It was a weird game.
It was a weird Sunday. I mean, like a lot of things went as predicted, but then like.
In different ways.
Oh, yeah. I guess you could say that. Like, it wasn't a very high-scoring Sunday, is what I know, in terms of fantasy. You didn't see a lot of low scores or winning fantasy weeks this week.
I did see that because in my Yahoo League, that every week seems to be just a shootout. Every single, like a low score, a score of 150 points isn't a winning score always. Like that's like your third or fourth.
I've already lost
score.
the season with 150.
That's honestly your third or fourth best score of the week usually. I mean last year in this league I had multiple weeks up over 200 points. Mind you, this is a league where it's a full point PPR. They have a lot of bonuses being thrown around, and quarterback passing touchdowns are 6 points. I've had this conversation with the commissioner. I don't like it. I will once again be pushing to change the bonuses for quarterbacks a quarterback on any given week can put up 60 points. It's ridiculous. So I think quarterbacks are way overpowered. I think pass catchers are also way overpowered too, but that's another story.
Hey, if we're talking about weird leagues, though, I'm in an IDP league that's also 0.2 points per yard instead of 0.1. Don't ask me why. Oh,
so points are almost doubled.
And IDP and Superflex, so you can play quarterback.
Oh, Superflex. I don't like Superflexes.
Neither. I flex Justin Herbert this week, though. Nice.
I'm not a big fan of the Superflex. It just feels like kindergarten play camp fantasy football.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like it.
It doesn't feel like real fantasy football. Like my vision of real fantasy football, and I mean, let's be real. That's the most oxymoronic thing you can say. Real fantasy football. But my version of real fantasy football is your standard lineup of quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex. And if you want to throw a third wide receiver in, fine. I'll play with that. And a kicker and a defense. And frankly, I don't even care about the kicker. Kicker can stay home for all I care. But I would gladly trade out the kicker to bring in a third wide receiver. I'd be fine with that. And hey, you still have your flex. And then at like a half point PPR, the standard scoring for quarterbacks, 4 points for passing touchdown, with some bonuses in there, maybe like a 2-point bonus for 350 passing yards or 300 passing yards, and 100 receiving yards or 100 rushing yards is a 2-point bonus. Small bonuses, not these 6 to 8 point bonuses that we're seeing in my Yahoo league. That is not technically my league. I'm in it, but I'm not. If a receiver hits like 100 yards, he gets like a 6-point bonus. It's ridiculous.
Just out of curiosity, is your fantasy league still for money?
It is not this year. We said from the very beginning we were going to wait and see how things go. And mind you, this is a league that there's good money up in the air. There's good money thrown out there. So, and it's a league that's been going on for a long time, over a decade. So for them not to do money, it was a big deal for this league. But we decided from the beginning to take the wait and see approach with the money aspects, and just kind of gauge how the season was going to play out. Are we going to get a full season? Are we going to see COVID have a lot of effects in the season? And so everybody held on to their money. We decide that later on. Well, and it would have been probably just majority vote or let the commissioner decide, basically. Now that we've already seen games moved around, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but the schedule that they had to the
whole schedule moved.
Yeah, like week 10 became week 7, became week 6, week 9, week 14.
Dude, you know how hard it was to do starts and sits this week? I was like, wait, are they playing this week? Wait, who's playing this week?
Yeah, I have no idea even what to look at anymore. I really don't. But because of that, I personally have had the conversation where I'm like, this is ridiculous. Are we paying or not? And he said, no, no. It's not, it's free this year. We're not doing that. There's too many variables in play. Like, here's a perfect example. All right. So I picked up Mo Alley Cox this week, right? To play as my tight end because Jonnu Smith.
Goose.
Right. Well, Jonnu Smith is my other tight end.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, well, the Titans probably aren't going to be playing because I saw on like Saturday afternoon, someone else from the Titans organization got COVID, another positive test. So I'm like, oh, there's no way they play on Tuesday. So I took them out. Mm-hmm. Well, are they playing on Tuesday? I don't even know anymore. I think they are. But I took them out and put in Mo Alley Cox, and it screwed me because I got 0 points out of him. But I wasn't going to play. I mean, I guess technically by the way he's doing it, like I could have left Jonnu Smith in and still got a 0 anyways. But at least I hope to get some points out of it. But I mean, it's stuff like that is the reason that we're not doing it for money this year. It's too difficult. Like if you want to do money leagues this year, do DFS. Like there's no other reason to do anything else. Like just amongst our friends, we've got a DFS weekly league going on where we change rosters every week of who's playing. So
yeah, I'm commissioner of our family league. We moved it to DFS. Obviously, our friends league, we moved to DFS. I'm only in this year first time, I don't know how many years now. I'm only in one like actual, just like normal ESPN league, which is the one I just told you about.
I'm actually,
and yeah, that one is for money, but they've now made it free also. So.
I'm actually really curious to see how much DraftKings, FanDuel, all those DFS leagues have, like how much their user base has shot up this year in comparison to other years. And not just that, but how much larger of a gap they've gained, like how much closer, because I'm assuming ESPN, like your standard leagues are still, the way just people do it year in and year out with fantasy football. I'm sure that's, utilized much more. I'm curious to see how much the gap has closed though between your DFS leagues and the yearly leagues like in ESPN or an NFL, just because of how much things have changed and how many leagues have switched over. And I'll be honest with you, I don't hate the idea of keeping at least our friends league on DFS format. Yeah, I like the DFS format. I always have.
Or even do both.
I mean, we could. I don't hate that idea either. But
I also learned this week how I didn't realize that DraftKings, FanDuel, one that we're affiliated with, Thrive, Google, all have the same stat providers.
Yes.
I did not know this.
They do all have the same stat providers.
Because they were all down.
Yeah. Yes. That was very frustrating. I mean,
legit, I couldn't even Google stats on how you can Google game, like you can just throw a game on a Google and you can just look at the box score and see the numbers. I was just trying to do that just to figure out like real quickly like how many points maybe I would have. Couldn't even do that. Weren't showing up.
Really? Because I was able to get in-game stats on other apps.
Other apps, yes. I wasn't able to just do it. I wasn't able to just look it up on Google anymore.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, because I didn't use that. I like to use a score app to get my
Bleacher Report. Is what I ended up doing.
Yeah, I use score app to get my game notifications, things like that. I have Bleacher Report. I can't stand the writers. I can't stand Bleacher Report. It's terrible.
Right now, I can't stand the format in terms of the interface in terms of actually viewing scores.
Yes.
Like why can't I go to a team and just view all their weeks and just go weep out?
I am very tech savvy. It's what I do for a living. I am very tech savvy. I get lost in Bleacher Report's app. It's terrible. There's no reason I should ever get lost in an app ever. I know what I'm doing. But no, it's obviously just been a weird season, and honestly, I think we may as well just strap in because I think it's about to get even weirder as we see games moved from week to week. Where we thought our team was playing this that week, but now they're playing the other week, and somebody's playing on Tuesday night. God knows when the last time that's ever happened, and it's insane. Like I think I saw a game this upcoming week was postponed to Monday night at like 5:00. Yeah. Like this upcoming week, I think it was supposed to be the Thursday game. I think it was Chiefs Bills or something. Game postponed to like Monday at 5:00. So I'm gonna be like driving my happy ass home from work, and I'm gonna be listening to a damn football game.
God,
it's a weird season. It really is.
Chiefs Bills 5:00. You're right. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Like,
when was the last time we got a game that early on a weekday?
Not in my lifetime. Not that I know of, anyways. I mean, was that one game that beats with the Vikings? I can't remember who they played against. Where their dome, the Metrodome's roof collapsed because of all the snow, and they ended up having to play in Detroit. Was that on a weekday? And it was early. I know it was on a.
Remember the situation? I could not tell you when the game was.
I don't know, but it's weird times, man.
Yeah,
and I really do think it's only going to get weirder and weirder. I mean, we have some games that have fans at them, some that don't. I'm just confused with all of it.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
And honestly, I'm obviously not the only one in general. I mean, sports in general are confusing right now because it's obviously been caused a lot of people to not want to watch because ratings all across the board for sports in general are majorly down. I mean, shit, the NBA finals were down 50% from last year. That's an insane metric.
I was talking about this to our buddy Alex over the weekend. We were talking about like how the NBA finals, like, it just doesn't, like, when you're watching it doesn't feel like you're watching the finals.
It doesn't feel right. I watched the games and it didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like the NBA finals. I don't know if I was just tired of bubble ball or what it was.
I really think it's a lack of a crowd. I really do.
Is it the Mickey Mouse ring just doesn't hit home? I mean, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the crowd. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I'm sick of seeing LeBron James cheat his way to an NBA championship every other year. Let me just join up with the next biggest superstar in the NBA every single year. I'm being facetious, obviously. Dude's one of the greatest, but
we knew it was coming.
I know. I had to. But I don't know what it is. It just wasn't exciting to watch. None of it was. And sports in general just don't feel the same. I mean, I watched a lot of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and those didn't even feel right. They felt better than the NBA playoffs did. But they're not the same. None of it's the same. And football's at least moderately close because the crowd noise is at least halfway decent. And it still feels like football. And I think actually the NFL games are the only one that has the viewership that competes with last year's viewership. But like football still seems like football to me. But the other sports just didn't seem right. They felt more like I was watching a preseason game than a championship tier game. Yeah. Baseball, same way. I don't like watching baseball right now. I didn't like watching basketball. There were days where it felt like a chore.
I liked watching basketball when I knew it was rare that I would tune in from beginning to end in a bubble game. Like there were games I did, but like it wasn't often. Like I really had to have nothing going on to do that.
Right.
But yeah, like it was only exciting when I knew like it's the fourth quarter. I'm like, oh, this game is close. Let's tune in for the fourth quarter.
Right.
Then it's just the actual drama of the game itself that's exciting. But yeah, you were really missing the fan element of it. Now let's give the NBA its props. They managed to go 3 months out of COVID case. That alone is props.
I mean, they better. They had full on like national security type shit going on down there. That was no joke.
But there definitely was an element missing, and I think it was most glaring when the finals came about.
I watched a video
today. Most glaring to me.
I watched a video today of how the security, it kind of gave you a glimpse of what the security was like down there. I watched a video of what it was like to be a chef in the bubble. And it was this woman, and it was this lady and her assistant. They were the only two that made all this food for she was one of 10 chefs. And she was one of the soul food chefs, and she made all this, this awesome food, and she basically like packed it into hot lunches, and then had she wasn't allowed to leave the building. Like this person who was a runner, she worked in a hotel, which mind you, there was like two different sectors of the bubble. There was an inner bubble that was the players and NBA staff and like ultra high clearance, and there was the outer bubble where the chefs and all the other people, were at, and then Like, so she makes all this food and she's got to like seal it a certain way. And then she hands it off to a runner who then goes to the edge of the inner bubble. He's not allowed to take the food in. He's got to hand it off to the next runner to who's inside the bubble. Like, this shit is ridiculous. Like, it's so, like, honestly, I feel like at that point you're changing hands so many times that you're getting rid of the safety aspect.
But hey, it worked.
I mean, it obviously did. Obviously it did, but still, that's insane security, man.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
That's ridiculous. But anyways, I mean, I really do believe like there's a certain number of reasons why at least the NBA viewership's down and sports across the board. NBA to me seems like it's gotten hit the hardest. You know, we don't see a metric like your viewership ratings are 50% lower than they were last year without a multitude of things going on. And obviously the bubble aspect is one of them. I do think people were a little bit tuned out with the LeBron aspect. I think some people are sick of watching him play, and I think some people already knew the outcome of what the finals were going to be.
Yeah.
So they were tuned out in that regard.
I mean, I also hope for the upset, but
I mean, I was too. I've always loved Jimmy Butler. I think he's a bulldog, but
dude, I've always loved him too, but he reached a whole new level of respect with me after Game 5. Watching what he did in Game 5 was simply incredible.
Oh, yeah. But and then there's the aspect of, I think the novelty of sports being back kind of wore off a little bit. And that's kind of how it felt for me was when sports came back, I was all excited. I was like, oh, finally we have sports again. And then like that novelty feeling kind of wore off.
Which we talked about on the show. We expected it to happen.
Yeah.
That once the first like few weeks or month passes, the novelty of it will start wearing off, and are we really going to be watching sports throughout the summer?
Right.
Which, I mean, I did watch. I'll be honest with you, I did watch more basketball than I watched all season, just in the summer.
Well, I mean, you weren't allowed out of your house for a solid 4 months. What else were you going to do?
Exactly.
But like and I guess my question for you is, and this is where the NBA is different from the other sports, particularly the NHL and I have heard a lot of this from a lot of different people of they didn't want to watch the NBA because of the political statements that they were making. And I guess like it didn't bother me watching it because it really didn't take away from the basketball at all. I guess I can kind of see where people would be kind of annoyed with it and say, why do we got to bring politics into sports? Why does this have to be slammed in my face of seeing stuff on the court, stuff on the jerseys, commercials, people all over the place saying stuff and, whatever. And regardless of whether or not you support it, which I can see why people wouldn't want it to be in their face all the time. I understand why they would want to do it, why they want to support it and promote it. And I get that. And I'm 100% on board with that. I've openly said I agree with the NBA vouching
I'm on the same
taking
boat.
A stand. I 100% agree with it. But I also can kind of see why people would be, just because of how much politics has entered our lives in general with the whole COVID situation, with sports, and obviously the insane situations that have been going on across the country with the protests and everything, and how much politics has really kind of taken a foothold in their lives, and people wanted to use sports as an escape. And I can see that. But for me personally, it didn't take away from it. I don't think so. I think that's only a small fraction of why the ratings were down. I know Adam Silver talked about it and said that it may be a reason for it, basically. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether or not how much of a factor you think that played and whether or not you think the NBA should go back to the way things were.
So I'll start off by saying I'm on the same boat as you. It didn't bother me at all, and I fully support them doing it. It had a weird effect with me. So in the beginning, like in the first few games, it was very noticeable. Like it was glaringly noticeable. But then it felt like it diminished as it went on to the point where like the NBA finals happened and I barely noticed. It was so much of an afterthought at that point, not to like diminish what they're doing. It stopped crossing my mind at any point. Like I was just there for the game at that point. So like I do get the concern in terms of letting politics creep into sports, and it's like politics creep because a lot of people do want to use sports as an escape, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know if it's just me or because like if someone is not, I guess, not a regular viewer of the NBA, I could see how it had the same like with the effect that on me when I first started watching the playoffs or first started watching the bubble, I should say, and how glaring it was. Maybe someone who wasn't watching regularly, it's glaring to them as soon as they turn it on. But like I felt like I personally got desensitized to it. So to me personally, I guess by the end, I would say like it didn't feel like too much, but I could see how someone who I guess isn't tuning in as much is not as desensitized to it as I would have been by the time the NBA Finals came around. So I don't think they're going to do it again next season.
Well, that was going to be my next question was, do you think the NBA continues to have this on their jerseys and on their floor? Do the court say Black Lives Matter next year? Do they allow the players to put a message on their jerseys? And do you think it's wrong that if the NBA chooses one way or another?
The question is it affecting anything? Is it affecting any kind of change? Is there anything coming out of the NBA doing this? Now, you could say that you're putting pressure, but if they could find a way to prove that their viewership is their viewership is directly related to to what they've been doing with the protests and all that, then you might actually be able to affect change by doing it because you are actually reaching people and affecting people and making
their viewership's down, so they're already reaching fewer people.
No, but what I'm saying is if you can find a way to directly attribute it to that, then you're making a case for, all right, we're making people uncomfortable enough to wait where we may be able to affect change because people want this off. Like people want this to go back to normal. Maybe change happens. That's how you affect change is by getting it out there. And oftentimes it might take making people uncomfortable to do it. But I would want to wait and see, is the viewership actually directly related to that?
At least a certain percentage I know for a fact is. And even if it's just a small fraction of a percent, I know for a fact a portion of the reasons their ratings have dropped is because of that. Because I personally
and the other question is, can the NBA afford to if it is directly related?
That's the other thing. And I'll get into that in a second. But because I personally have talked to people who have straight up said, I will not watch the NBA playoffs because of this. They not because they don't support the movement or not because they're racist or whatever. Because, I know some of the people I talk to are good people. They're not racist at all. They do not want politics in their sports. And they say they just can't get into it. It's too glaring. It's too much in their face. And, they're done with it. They got sick of it. So I know for a fact that a percentage of it is. But whether or not it's going to, and that's where I think the next step really needs to be is, it's great that they've taken a stand and they've put mementos out there and allowed their voices to be heard. Okay, but what's the next step? Talk is cheap, basically. We can talk about it all we want. Now it's time to do something about it and make it and have change actually happen. And so I am actually curious whether or not the NBA does this next year, and I don't think they will. I think this is just a one-off situation. It's okay to do things one year and not bring it back the next. It is, especially in a weird year like this.
And I think I agree with what you're saying. Like the NBA has made their point clear. They made it known. They've allowed players to voice their opinions. But you may be right. In the best course of action is, all right, we've done this. Now let's do something else.
Yeah,
like let's
make an effect in your community. Do something. But I and the NBA, I really don't believe they will be doing this next year. And the reason I believe that is because I do think it has hurt the pocketbook of the NBA. And we know damn well the NBA and their teams and ownership and Adam Silver and all of them are entirely sellouts. They are. When the pocketbook gets hurt, they come crawling right back to the way things were before. And that was case in point was the whole China-Hong Kong situation. When Daryl Morey spoke out against China and for the Hong Kong protests, what did the NBA do? Basically hung them out to dry. What did LeBron do? Oh, I don't know enough about the situation to comment. Oh, really? It just so happens that you make a lot of your money because of China. Go figure. Yeah. Same with the NBA. As soon as the NBA's pocketbook gets hurt, guess what happens? Their wokeness seems to lower down a little bit.
And the whole thing about next year, too, just to piggyback off what you were saying, and it brings me back to my original point is I think the reason they don't continue it into next year, it goes back to what I was saying about how I personally, and I don't know if this had the same effect on everybody else, but how I personally kind of became desensitized to it as the bubble games went on. I could see an effect where it becomes less effective because people have become desensitized to it. It's just expected, and they're like, oh yeah, that's okay. We've seen that over and over again.
Teams put stuff on their courts all the time.
Yeah.
I don't look at, I don't watch a game on TV, whether it's college, NBA, whatever. I don't look at the court and say, oh, look, they've got this guy's name on the court. I don't even notice that. Even if I'm seeing it for the first time, I don't notice it. It doesn't bother me. I have no issue with the NBA if they wanted to continue to do this. And hell, look at soccer jerseys. There's advertisements for a random company here all over the place.
But what I'm saying, man, it just may not be as effective because people may just be desensitized to it at that point.
I mean,
may not be as effective. The protests you see make the most waves, like at least in sports, is like, oh, I can't believe they did that, or like, oh, that's new, that looks really cool.
When it's new, when it's something big happened right away.
So
it's
may very well have gotten to a point where it's just
there's just no point to continue it.
Should we talk some lines?
Yeah, we can actually talk about what we were planning on talking about. We went on a little bit of a tangent there. Wait, one question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think the NFL season actually gets to conclude with a 17-week season? Or do we have a shortened season or an elongated season?
There is no chance that this concludes a 17-game season. If the season even
17 week, I should say.
Yeah, 17 week. If the season even finishes, it's going to be an elongated season.
I'm going to agree with you. We're now 5 weeks into this thing, and we've seen games flip-flop left and right, games delayed all over the place. There's no way this season finishes in a 17-week season. I'm starting to wonder if they're even going to play all 16 games. Because I don't know what the NFL wants to extend the season out. So I'm hoping.
And at the rate the injuries have been happening, Jesus.
Oh, I know, but I don't know. Maybe they shorten it to 14, or maybe they elongate it to a 19-week season or something. But things aren't looking too great right now. I'm in the same boat as you. I think they definitely have to either elongate it or shorten this season. So I don't know. Things are getting a little scary.
So we do have several Lions topics to get to, though. We'll start first with the whole Atlanta Falcons firing Dan Quinn, head coach, and their general manager, Thomas Dimitroff. This is after an 0-5 start to the season for Dan Quinn. Now, Dan Quinn, in his tenure with the Falcons, has been much better than Matt Patricia has been with the Lions.
Dude went to a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Granted, he blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl, but Matt Patricia's no stranger to blowing leads.
Just not in the Super Bowl. Yeah,
right.
Ever. No, I don't know why I even said yet. It's never.
I mean, technically as a DC, he's been and won.
So here's my question. Does the Atlanta Falcons pulling the trigger like this and after that 0-5 start, just ousting the GM, ousting the head coach, do you think it puts Sheila Ford on a little more of a hot seat to do the same, or do you think this is going to have zero effect?
See, I don't know that the Atlanta Falcons organization and firing of Dan Quinn puts the spotlight on Sheila Ford Hamp and Matt Patricia and that whole band of Goonies.
I wouldn't say so much a spotlight, so much as just it lights a fire under them, like, oh, they did something, maybe we should do something.
Well, it's not so much the Falcons for me as much, just because I don't think it's the same situation there. It's similar to an extent with the whole Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford comparisons. Dan Quinn's been there a while. Matt Patricia really hasn't, but there's similarities, but I think the two situations are different for different reasons. I think you have a lot more talent within the Atlanta Falcons team than you do the Lions team, and Dan Quinn clearly has just lost this team. The one coaching situation that I really do think puts a spotlight on the Lions and Sheila Ford Hamp and why aren't we doing something with this front office and personnel here in this coaching staff is the Texans organization. Because that's a playoff team year in and year out that very obviously has just lost. Like Bill O'Brien just lost that locker room and lost that team in general and was making poor decision after poor decision after poor decision when it came to front office as well as the coaching.
I mean, that trade was off. The Hopkins trade was awful.
Exactly. But I think that was really only kind of one of the nails in the coffin. I think there were so many added aspects to that, including the refusal to build an O-line for your quarterback that you paid hundreds of millions of dollars to, amongst other things. But seeing a guy like Bill O'Brien, who did take that team into the playoffs year in and year out, to then start 0-4 and get fired, that right there tells me that right there is the one thing that should put the spotlight on Sheila Fordham to make a move with this Lions organization. Because that's Quinn Tricia together. That's both Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia together. Because you've watched mistake after mistake after mistake. We are complete and total inability to correct so many glaring issues with this team. It's not like it's an issue that we just can't figure out. We know what our issues are. We can't stop the run. Our secondary is not good as a result. We can't rush the passer. Like we know what our problems are, but we can't fix them. And that right there. And it was the same deal with Bill O'Brien. And he couldn't build an offensive line to protect his franchise quarterback. He couldn't build a better defense. He couldn't get a running game that was legitimate. Like there a lot of glaring problems with the Texans that he couldn't fix, and the same issues going on here in Detroit. And I do think that really put some pressure on Sheila Fordham to make the decision to get rid of these guys as a result.
And I agree because, well, first of all, personnel-wise, or I shouldn't say personnel-wise, I should say performance-wise, you may as well just literally draw X's and O's on the field for our defense instead of putting players out there and just call that a day, because it has about the same effect. But I don't know why it seems to me that the Ford family seems to have lower standards than it seems like every other team in the NFL. Because
it really does.
I can tell you right now, if the Fords were in charge of the Falcons, I think Dan Quinn would still be there.
I do too. I think he'd be there for another 5 more years at least.
They took us to the Super Bowl.
Took us to 1 Super Bowl. Hell, we'll put a statue of you up. He'd be in the Lions Ring of Honor up there for getting them to a Super Bowl. Honestly, he probably would deservedly so with the way this organization's been run. But that's why that, even though I really would love to say that I think the firings of Bill O'Brien, the firing of Quinn in Atlanta should both light a fire on the ass of Sheila Ford and should at least have some kind of ripple effect. It should make her feel uncomfortable at the very least.
And see the standards that other organizations are holding their coaches to and try to abide by that. But you're going to have to convince me that Sheila Ford is even paying attention. You're going to have to convince me that Sheila Ford actually knows that Dan Quinn and Bill O'Brien were fired.
I mean, you're not wrong. And that just goes to show what this Lions organization has been for the last, at least in our lifetime, for the last 20 some odd years. Mm-hmm. We have no faith in this ownership to actually make a decision that makes sense. And the standards are truly so low in this city when it comes to the football team. Just a competing team is something the Fords think is acceptable. And frankly, I don't even know what I would consider this team competing. Team. Exactly. I wouldn't even consider this team competing. What? They held a lead in 3 games? Woo! What happened to those leads? I mean, it's embarrassing to watch this football team play football on a week in and week out basis. Hell, it's embarrassing to say I'm a fan of this team sometimes. And do I still wear it proudly? Yes, I do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a Lions hater. I want this organization to be better. It's so hard to look at what is in front of us here and say, hey, we're going to be successful. Because if it's obvious to me what is wrong with this team and they can't fix that, then why the hell are they the ones making millions of dollars and not me? And I'll tell you right now, I'm not the only one it's obvious to. Let me tell you that.
But that's way number 1 that the Lions lost this weekend. Number 2 is a gentleman by the name of Travis Fulgham.
Just another player to leave town and go be excellent somewhere else.
If you guys were wondering, Travis Fulgham was a Bob Quinn draft pick just last year.
I still don't understand why they cut him.
Me neither, because I remember him drafting out of Old Dominion, and a lot of people were predicting him as like one of those diamond in the rough sleeper picks late in the draft. And there were reports that he was kind of impressive in camp, and he spent most of his time on the practice squad. They did call him up for the last few games, but I don't think they actually used him. I think he got the field, but I don't think they had any plays drawn up for him specifically. Anyways, but he goes to Philly. He has a pretty decent start to the season, and then
explodes
in week 5.
10 catches, 152 yards, and a touchdown.
Yep.
That's some good numbers right there.
he seems, over the course of the last few games, he seems to have catapulted to the top of the wide receiver depth chart for the Eagles. And watching him play, watching what the color commentators were saying about him as he was playing.
You thought he was the next coming of Jerry Rice.
It literally felt like a dagger in the heart of Lions fans. And I just, every cat, like, I have nothing against Travis. I liked him when we drafted him. I have nothing against him. But every time he made a play, I was getting more and more pissed. I was just...
You know what it's almost like? It's almost like watching Quandre Diggs grab 2 picks and be on a great playoff team, or grab a couple picks in a game and be successful for Seattle. It's how many times have we seen a player leave here and go blossom somewhere? What's his face? Larry Warford making a Pro Bowl after he leaves here. I mean, what the hell is that? We have all this. Apparently, we have all this talent here, but we don't know how to use it or don't know how to bring it out of players. And it is frustrating to watch a guy like Travis Fulgham do well, because, in all reality, a rookie by the name of Quintez Cephas most likely took his roster spot. And Quintez Cephas, I don't even know if his name's been called in the last 3 weeks, or at least the last 2 weeks. Has he done anything?
Not much. He was nice when King Galladay was out.
Right.
Since King Galladay's been back, not much.
And I was excited about Quintez Cephas. I'll be honest. I was aboard that train. But he could have used did he have to take Travis Fulgham's spot? I understand Marvin Hall's a nice downfield threat, but the one play a game, maybe 2 that we run to him, is that worth the roster spot of a guy like Travis Fulgham, who could have been a bigger part of this offense? I mean, it's so obvious that talent recognition is not a strong suit of this front office and coaching staff. There's just another glaring issue that is extremely obvious that I don't understand why Sheila Ford doesn't see that. So, talent recognition arguably should be the number one most important thing about your front office.
I mean, look at that's basically the sole thing the Pistons focus on when hiring a GM this offseason was, let's get the guy with the best talent recognition abilities that we can find. Enter Troy Weaver. But yeah, in 2 games of the Eagles so far, Travis Fulgham has 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. My question I want to pose, I wish on this show they had callers, because I'd pose a little differently, but I'll just pose it to you. Should this, for anyone that is still a Bob Quinn truther or a Bob Quinn apologist, should the explosion of Travis Fulgham be the final nail in the coffin for them?
I mean, that coffin's been nailed closed for me for a while now.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Like, I would, if this was a show with callers, I'd pose it out I want to know from people who still like Bob Quinn, is this the final straw for you? Call in 248.
To me, this is just another nail in a coffin that's been nailed shut for a long time.
The coffin looks like Hellraiser at this point.
It does. It's just another stepping stone on the pyramid of buffoonery that is this front office and coaching staff. They need to be gotten rid of. They clearly can't recognize talent. They clearly can't see talent that's right in front of them at all. They can't utilize or bring out any talent in a player that has any kind of potential. This is truly where careers seem to go to die.
Yeah.
Or careers refuse to take off because they don't know how to get talent out of players. They can't build it. They can't develop it. They can't recognize it. And it's not like it's just an issue with Bob Quinn. It was an issue for a long time before him. But it just seems so glaring with Bob Quinn now because they talked up their game. They talked up their game, and they said 9-7 wasn't good enough. We have a lot of talent here. We need to get better. And then they backtracked and said there was a lot of work to do when they got here. Okay, where's this work?
But the Lions seem to be especially good, or Bob Quinn, I should say, seems to have a penchant drafting players and almost immediately cutting them. Ty Johnson, we drafted him last year as well, 2019. He got cut this offseason.
Yeah, he ain't the only one.
Running back we drafted this year in the 5th round, Jason Hundley. He didn't even make it to see one game. He got cut in
if you are cutting your 4th and 5th round picks, you clearly have no idea how to draft. Because 4th and 5th round picks are where you make your big money as a GM. If you can find guys in those rounds that are on your roster, I'm not saying be stars. I'm saying on your roster and playing. That's where you find your guys. those mid to mid-late rounds, third, fourth, and fifth round guys are where you make your money as a GM. Yeah. And if you are cutting guys in the first offseason, they haven't even played a damn game. You're getting rid of guys you drafted in that round?
Without a preseason. Like, there's nothing. Just off practice, you're cutting them.
Oh, yeah. In all honesty, you really don't even have to look very far into the Bob Quinn draft repertoire to understand this dude has no idea what he's doing. Just look at his second-round picks, to be completely honest with you. I mean, shit, what's Tease Tabor doing now? Oh, yeah. I don't even think he's on a football team anymore. Jelani Tavai doesn't exactly look like a stud. Probably could have gotten him 3 rounds later. Kerryon Johnson looks like he's done. DeAndre Swift, hell, they don't even know how to use him.
I just don't understand what the Forge are still waiting for. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me.
The only thing I can say
is they're not paying attention. That's it.
The only thing I can say about it that maybe is a reason to give them a shot. I don't even know what to even call it at this point because they've had many shots.
Give them a shot.
Yeah, it's maybe they feel like they pulled the trigger too early on Jim Caldwell, on Jim Schwartz. You know, maybe they feel like they've had this revolving door of head coaches and GMs since Millen, basically, and they've never given someone enough of an opportunity to build something. But in all honesty, at this point, I have no reason to continue leaving this door open to these guys. They've proven to me they don't know what they're doing. You know, it's one thing to be building something and it's just taking longer than expected, but it's another thing to have had something already solidly built, tear it down, and just try to piece it together with thrown away pieces from a different house. And it do nothing. Like, it literally looks like they took the old kitchen and door and studs and windows from the New England Patriots house and tried to use those pieces and build our house with it after tearing down a nice middle-class home.
No, don't get me like. I think both of us here, we both did want to move on from Jim Caldwell, but we didn't want to actively regress. We wanted to move forward.
Don't get me wrong. Just because Matt Patricia sucks as a head coach does not make Jim Caldwell a great head coach by any sense of the means.
He's both great by comparison.
Be bad. He is, but both can be bad coaches. It's not one or the other. Both can be bad. Both were bad and are bad. Like, Jim Caldwell was a fantastic coach Monday through Saturday. Fantastic coach. Honestly, could have been one of the best Monday through Saturday coaches in the league. Come Sunday, dude didn't know a nail from a screw a nail from his elbow in the wall. He didn't know anything.
We have seen a remarkable decrease in 12 men on the field calls for the Lions.
Yeah, but I think I've seen a few plays where they only had 10.
I have one more Lions question to pose to you before we go on to do a quick preview of the Jags. As everyone has seen, Dak Prescott suffered an ugly ankle injury.
Yes.
Done for the year.
Yeah, that was brutal. Not pretty.
A lot of Lions fans, because it's widely known that Jerry Jones loves Matthew Stafford. A lot of Lions fans.
Well, he's from Texas. He was Clayton Kershaw's buddy.
Oh, no way. A lot of Lions fans have been calling for this organization to trade Stafford to Dallas. Nick, I'm curious. Is this something you'd be interested in, and what would you be looking for in return?
I mean, yeah. I'm ready to tear this thing down. I like Matt Stafford a lot. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a guy you can win with. I just think this whole thing has run its course. I do. He's had 10 years now.
And I just kind of feel bad for him.
I do too. Granted, I don't think that situation in Dallas is any better right now, but I do too. At least
I think he'd be insanely good in Dallas, though.
I think he'd be better than he would be here. I don't think they'd be winning more football games. Because I don't think, how is he an upgrade from Dak Prescott? Different quarterback. I think he can pass the ball better than Dak Prescott. I don't think Dak Prescott's a great quarterback by any means. He's just a playmaker. But either way, would I be surprised if this happened and a little bit upset if this happened? Yeah, I mean, it'd be like losing somebody in your life, but knowing that it's probably the best thing for you.
Yeah.
You're still sad about it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this is kind of good. And in a different way. We can move forward now. I'll tell you right now, though, it would need to be right in the same breath as hey, you're fired, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. It would need to be in that same breath. I would prefer the latter happen before the former there, so that Bob Quinn's not the one making this trade, because he's clearly got no ability to do that.
You would get a Bill O'Brien, DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson type trade.
Yes. Frankly, though, I do think with the premium that quarterbacks are, and the fact that Matt Stafford's contract is, like, in terms of how expensive it is, like, in the middle ground, which I think he can be a better quarterback than a middle ground paid quarterback. So it would probably be a bargain at that point for them, contract-wise. I would expect a first, probably 2. Do I think they get that? Probably not, because Bob Quinn's the one pulling the strings here. But I would expect a couple of first-round picks, especially considering Dallas is a team that's wanting to compete and Jerry Jones willing to pay. So yeah, I'd be going up strong into that. I'd be going up with my ding-a-ling out, saying, "Hey, let me flop it on the table and show me what you got." Lay down the cards, put your chips on the table. Let's see it. You want my man? I got your man. Here you go. Come on.
I agree with you that draft capital is what I'd be looking for, especially this season, because Dallas doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Oh, you have to. You have to.
But this is the curveball. This is why I posed the question, because I want to throw this curveball at you. What if it's a trade of Dak Prescott from Matthew Stafford straight up? Would you take it?
Straight up? How old's Dak?
27?
No, because I got to sign him. No,
you'd have to sign him, or you can let him go. It's up to you.
No, I'd have to sign him, and no, because of the fact that I'd have to sign him. I'm not the biggest fan of Dak Prescott. I'll be honest.
I know
with
not.
you.
I know.
I never have been.
Yeah.
I think Stafford is a better pure passer than Dak Prescott. I just think Dak Prescott's a better playmaker. But I'll be honest with you.
You could make an argument that a playmaker could be what you need in Detroit.
Yes. However, I don't want to be paying a playmaker that I don't really think is that great of a pure passer $40 million a year. I don't want to pay a quarterback that much money. I'd like to take my chances with a high draft pick and a rookie. So no, I don't think I'd do that trade straight up. I mean, granted, you could get this trade done, make the signing, and get the deal done and still have a really high draft pick because Dak ain't playing this year. So, I mean, there is that aspect, and you still get your high draft pick to get a piece to add to Dak Prescott's weapons, and that's, fine and dandy and nice. But I think there's too many glaring holes in this roster that Dak doesn't fill. So
I feel that.
I would rather tear this whole damn house that's put together with Patriots garbage down and build it properly with somebody else as the contractor.
Yeah, I'd rather start with like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old quarterback, but it depends how long I have to sign Dak for.
I mean, there's no question you got to give him at least a 5-year deal.
Yeah,
that's what you want.
Because I was about to say, if I can sign him for like 3-4 years, I could do that as like a transition.
To sign him for that, you'd have to pay him $45 million a year. I mean, you'd have to pay him upwards of that. Like you'd have to give him just a ridiculous contract, and I'm not about paying a guy that. How many quarterbacks have we seen win Super Bowls that have those types of contracts? I mean, there's not a lot of them. I know the guy's the most important player on the field, and I get that about that position, but when a guy takes up that much of your salary cap, yikes, it hurts. Can't build a team around that, and there's a lot of holes the Lions got to fill. So
every year there's usually at least one really good quarterback coming through the draft, whether it be the best quarterback ranked in the draft or it's someone that you find.
I'll be honest with you. I think there's at least 2 good quarterbacks coming through this draft. I do. I think
getting the Cowboys pick just gives you that much of a better shot at getting one of them instead of.
I think Trevor Lawrence is the real deal, and I think that kid from the no-name school is the real deal. I think it's North Dakota State.
What about Justin Fields?
I don't believe in Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL.
Gotcha.
I don't. I think he's a very talented player. I think he's a really good kid. I think he's got great potential. I'm not a believer in Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL. I've seen too many of them fail entirely. I mean, Dwayne Haskins is case in point.
Troy Brown.
Terrell Pryor sucked. He was a receiver, and then he flunked out of the league at that too. I've seen too many Ohio State quarterbacks flunk out of this league.
Yeah.
What did JT Barrett do?
Is he still playing?
I don't think so.
I'm just like trying to think. Like,
you know what I saw the other day? I'm pretty sure Matt Barkley is still on a team.
No way.
Yeah. I'm not even kidding you. I could have sworn I saw the other day maybe it was a dream and I was looking at a depth chart in my dream, but I'm pretty sure this dude's still on a roster.
You would be looking at depth charts in your dreams.
He is. I know, right? He is. Matthew Montgomery Barkley is a Buffalo Bills backup quarterback. He's only 30? Wow, time has not changed for him. Time has not flown for him. I thought he would be like 35.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember I used to love Troy Smith at Ohio State, and I remember he turned out to be nothing. I think the Ravens drafted him.
I have no idea.
But
there's been so many bad Ohio State NFL quarterbacks, it's ridiculous.
Anyway, let's real quick preview the Lions-Jags game. Lions are giving 2.5 in this game.
Giving 2. They are not in a place to be giving anybody anything.
My question is, what are you more worried about going in? Are you more worried about...
I'm worried about a rookie running back putting up 140 yards.
Are you more worried about James Robinson, or are you more worried about Gardner Minshew?
I'll be honest with you, I'm worried about both because the Lions make bad quarterbacks look real good at times. They have a knack for doing that. And I don't think Gardner Minshew is bad. I just don't think he's good. And they have a knack for making quarterbacks like that
look
look
this year so far.
Yes, but they have a knack for making those kind of quarterbacks look real good. I don't know. I mean, the Jags are a bad football team, but so are the Lions. It's not going to be a pretty game. It might be a little bit boring to watch at times, but I am worried about James Robinson torching the Lions. There's not a lot of excitement for me going into this one. I'm just not that excited about it because I don't think we have a good game ahead of us. I think both teams are bad. I think you'll see that too. I think you'll see a lot of big mistakes made by both teams.
Yeah. So Gardner Minshew has thrown for at least 300 yards in 3 games this season, and he's thrown for multiple touchdowns in 4 out of 5 games.
All right, so he's had a solid season. Good for him. Minshew magic, baby.
I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Minshew goes for at least 302 against the Lions.
If he goes for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions, Jaguars win this game. They do. Because for the Lions to win this ball game, they have to force mistakes. That's how they beat the Cardinals. And
he's only thrown 2 interceptions on the year, so... Or sorry, no, 4 interceptions on the year.
Okay, so he's got almost 1 per game.
He's fumbled twice this year.
Yes. I don't know. I do think that he's prone to making mistakes. I think they can force him to make a couple. I'll say this right now. I don't think either team's very good at all. I don't think this, says anything about either team, but because I think we know what both teams are. I think the Lions win this football game by at least a field goal.
So you're taking the
I am gonna take the Lions with I'll lay the points. I will take the Lions in this one. Coming off the bye week, I think they'll be ready to play. I think they'll be healthier.
That's a big factor for me. Is coming off the bye week for the Lions.
Jags took a big loss to the Texans this week, and the Texans are a bad football team. I mean, 74-year-old Romeo Crennel was the coach of the Texans this week. Fun fact: oldest coach to ever win an NFL game.
Wait, for real?
Yes.
He
became the oldest coach to win an NFL football game. I didn't even know he was still coaching. I was pretty shocked about that one. I knew the dude was old. But
going into the game, though, I'm just trying to figure out where the focus should really be for the Lions. If there's more danger on the ground, if there's more danger in the air, because I feel like the Jags are a team that can hit you both ways. They're just not really particularly great at either side, but they can hit you both ways depending on what part of it there is hot that day, basically.
They can, however, I think the real threat is through the air. James Robinson has been a nice find early on for the Jaguars, but in the last couple of weeks, he hasn't been that impressive.
Yeah, 17 for 75, 13 for 48.
Right.
Great.
He's not in 11 for 46 with 2 touchdowns, granted, but 11 for 46 is nothing to write home about against the Dolphins. I mean, he hasn't been that great the last few weeks. So, honestly, I'm not all that. I mean, I know the Lions' run D is terrible, but I don't know that James Robinson is going to kill you this week. So I would, if I'm the Lions, focus in on rushing the passer. And trying to stop the pass. That's what I would focus in on. They've got a lot more playmakers out wide than they do in that backfield with Laviska Shenault, who looks like a really nice piece, and DJ Chark and Keelan Cole. I'd be more worried about the passing game than I would be the running game. Yeah. So that's where I think the Lions need to focus their defense in on and stop that from beating you and just score on offense. And I think they'll be all right.
So you got the Lions taking the
I'll take the Lions given the 2.5.
Gotcha.
What do you got?
No, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna go Jacksonville.
Oh, he's going against us.
Because I agree with you that if Gardner Minshew goes for 302, that the Lions lose this game, and I think Gardner Minshew goes for 302, knowing the way the secondary is. So
fair. All right. Well, it's tough to cover your man when you got to do it for 10 seconds. But anyways, though, that all you got?
Yes, sir.
All right. That'll close it out for this week, guys. Thank you for listening. We will catch you guys next week. As per usual, check out our fantasy football podcast, The Fanalists, on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network as well. Andrew, thank you for joining me. Follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you guys again. This has been the Fan Report by fans.
For fans.
That was a mouthful. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you again. Peace out.
Peace.